How you doing today, buddy?
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay,
I can
good.
see you.
Good. I had to put my ears on. Trying to keep it Emily's in there studying her scriptures, so I'm trying to keep it quiet.
Well, bless her heart.
How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Another awesome day in the neighborhood.
I guess you had a busy last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's been kind of crazy. I took off and went up to Seattle for that Bob Wright event, and that I was also helping a friend of mine move. And one of my old high school friends moved from Salt Lake up to Walla Walla, Washington, and that was just a few hours away from Seattle. So I decided I'd kill two birds with one stone and go ahead and go up there to the Seattle event. And because she was just moving into her house, we were having issues with connectivity and that kind of stuff, and so it made it tough
Yeah.
to get in. And then this last weekend, I went down to the Red Pill Expo down in Mesquite, and ran into those things. I think are going to be a real hotbed for people that are interested in enagic, because it's there are a lot of people who are concerned about their health. They're concerned about all the dastardly things that government is doing, and things like 5G and vaccines. And I'll tell you what, Coach, that 5G thing, that's a really interesting gig right there, because they showed in fact, I'm going to be doing some shows about this stuff, but they showed a memo that was put out to all of Verizon Wireless, the Verizon company, to all of their stockholders and their shareholders. And basically what it said, it was an official company memo. And basically what it said is, when we get this 5G rolling out, we expect it to cause a lot of health damage to people, and we expect to be getting into lawsuits, and we expect to lose some of these lawsuits. So we just wanted to give you a heads up that we expect to get into these lawsuits, and we expect to lose them.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean that all falls into the category of environmental toxins and what these different things are doing to the body as far as causing free radical damage.
Yeah, exactly.
That all boils down to that, and this is where people just don't get it. What's really sad, JJ, is that I just saw where Japan is no longer the number one healthiest country in the world. Remember back about 8 or 9, I don't know how long you've been in the enagic, but a long time ago, I remember that whenever a enagic leader did a presentation, they always had up there in the slideshow about Japan being number one, the most healthiest country in the world, right? And they are still pretty healthy. I mean, they're still smarter than we are when it comes to their health. But the sad thing is today, Japan is no longer the healthiest country in the world. And why is that? Well, the reason for that is because their country has become Americanized with the fast food industry. And so now they're having issues with obesity. They're having issues with cancer, and probably the most popular disease, not only in here in the United States, which is an epidemic, is type 1 and type 2 diabetes.
Uh-huh.
And so people don't realize that, I don't understand why these health professionals aren't talking more about molecular hydrogen H2 that's in our water. Because, it's not us. We're not the one that's preaching this. We're not the ones that are telling people, okay, if you understand the physiology of your body and how important the right type of water is, And what science has been saying about it since 2007, and what the brand new science is saying about molecular hydrogen H2 as being the most powerful antioxidant. I'm not talking about multiple antioxidants. I'm talking about one molecule. And that's where the confusion is getting. And what's happening is we're not the ones that are saying this. It's science saying it. How it's a scavenger of free radicals. And people just don't understand that water is, 75% of your body. Brain is 80%, blood is 90%. Well, if you're drinking water that's toxic, and you're drinking water that has no structure to it, that can't actually go in there and penetrate these cell walls and be able to infiltrate the most powerful antioxidant on the planet that is known by man, that's able to neutralize the most dangerous free radical on this planet, and it's helping the number one part of the cell, which is the mitochondria, then you know what? This is where all that 5G and all these environmental toxins are going to be stored up. And so, and we're just messengers. I mean, we're just relating to people what science says. That's not coming from us. See, there's the confusion. When people say you make claims and things, we're not making claims. All we're doing is just reading what science is saying. That's all we're doing.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of interesting, Coach, because there's been a lot of recent stuff going on from Enagic, clamping down, telling us we can't make any kind of claims, we can't tell any stories, we can't, and that kind of boggles my mind a little bit. I know why they're doing it. It's just because they're afraid of getting shut down by the Fraud and Death Administration, and and so they're trying to keep us tight-lipped about saying anything. But the truth of the matter is, they put out a memo about what we're allowed to say, and I'll tell you what, if that's what if that's what Tim McGaffin would have been telling me, I wouldn't even be involved with the Enagic. Those four things that we're allowed to say, that wouldn't have moved my meter in the least. And what moved my meter was a story. It was a true life story from an incredible angel named Brittany Dykes. She actually shared her story, and that's all she was doing. She wasn't making any medical claims. She was sharing her story. And the word is, we're not even allowed to share our stories. And I'm like, what the heck? This is ridiculous. And then you watch these drug commercials on TV where they're sitting here yammering up a storm about how it's going to help your heart problem or your whatever issue you got, and then followed by 20 seconds of really fast talking, telling you all the different things that it's going to do to you. And, as far as why medical practitioners are not getting after this, I think it's really quite simple, because they simply don't want to get put out of a job.
Well,
they need us to be sick, Doc. I mean, Coach, they need us to be sick. If we're not sick, they don't make any money, period. That's one thing that's always bothered me about the medical profession and people who believe in it, is that it's not in their best interest for us to be healthy.
Well, the AMA, and that's why I actually didn't get involved with the medical end of all this, is because the AMA governs the doctors, and the AMA is so powerful, and they're so into the pharmaceutical companies, that doctors who actually know how hydrogen H2 has helped people who have high blood pressure and diabetes, because of course science is saying this. You don't have to listen to me. You can go and research it yourself. Science is saying this. They can't prescribe, or they can't tell people about this, because the AMA will take their license away. I was actually told by a doctor here in town that is the number one reason why he's not able to tell his patients about molecular hydrogen H2, is because he doesn't want to lose his license. So, and going back to what you were saying about the claims and things, is that Enagic is actually they're right, because there's a lot of uneducated distributors that are throwing the name of Enagic, and they're adding, to the claims. Kangen water, especially, that, it's not Kangen water. Kangen water is not what is helping so many people. That's not it. It's not Kangen water. It's that molecule, molecular hydrogen H2. Take the word Kangen water out of it. Don't even mention it, because it's not that. That isn't what is helping people. Yeah, Kangen water is just a name. That's all it is. That's just a phrase. So take that out, because it's not true. The issue is where I see that Enagic is going to get in trouble because of history, is these top leaders that are using their toys and their houses, and they're talking about how much money they're making to try to steer people into the business. That's got to stop.
Yeah, that's exactly the case too, because I know Cynthia Briganti, she's one of the top money earners in the company, and I had her on the show a couple weeks back, and I asked her that question that I always ask everybody, where if you only have just a minute or so, you've got just a few seconds to say something to somebody to maybe get them interested or whatever. Her answer was, "Oh, I show them my big house and my Ferrari."
Can't do that. Yeah, you have to stop that.
That was right after she just said minutes earlier that it's not about the money.
No, and the thing is, what they're doing, and this is where where Enagic compliance needs to go after these leaders, put them in a meeting room and explain to them, eliminate all that stuff. Because every time Oshira, the company owner, gets on stage or talks, does he talk about having a lot of money? You ever hear him talk about that?
No.
You ever hear him talk about that? No. What is the number one thing he talks about? Health.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what these leaders, and you're right, and that's why I don't go to these trainings anymore, because of that reason of them trying to steer people to get involved in Enagic because of their toys and their fancy houses and their fancy, traveling all over the world and visiting. That's BS. That's all wrong. Totally wrong. And that's why I don't go to these trainings anymore, because of that reason. Because there's not actually, these trainings should be dictated by a leader that will actually help people about the health factor of it and use health as its primary force. Because we all know that the money will follow. Now, the money should be thought of as a tool or a driver to give you more time to leave your job, to give you more time to go out there and educate people about molecular hydrogen H2 and how it's able to hydrate the body more efficiently, and the physiology of how molecular H2 works with the cell and how it's able to detox the body. See, that's the key factor. People just don't understand that in order to get actual overall health, you have to have the ability to detox the body on a daily basis. And molecular hydrogen H2, and because of the structure, it's gone through the ionization process, which is through electricity, changes the actual structure of the molecule. So it has the ability to enter the cell at the cellular level and to be able to detox the cell with every glass of water. Because like you mentioned, every year, the environmental toxins are getting worse and worse and worse. And the only way that you have a chance to survive in this environmental toxin world, and then you brought it up. I mean, the 5G, or those people that live by those gigantic electrical poles. I mean, what's that doing to their body?
Yeah.
And if you don't have a way to those are free radicals floating around in the air. You're not going to get away from it. But because of the processed foods that we're eating that are so toxic, and especially water, all the bottled water, I don't care what it is, every single bottle of water is toxic. And the World Health Organization has proved it. And how in the world, I tell parents, you know, you don't care about your health because you feel that you're immune to any diseases. You don't have a disease now. You feel great. So, okay, I'm immune to it. Nothing's going to ever happen to me. But you know what? Look at your kids. Why in the world would you have the same attitude toward your kids when science and researchers are been telling you for years that our immune system is so depressed because of the environmental toxins, because of the poison on the food, the poison that's in the water. Our immune system is so depressed, it just can't keep up. Now, it makes sense because look at what's happening with diseases amongst the young kids. You know, cancer amongst the young kids is, look at all the commercials about all these hospitals that have special wards for kids, and they need more money because more and more kids are getting cancer. My granddaughter, who just contracted at 13 years old, type 2 diabetes. And my question, type 1 diabetes. Now, what is driving it? What causes a 13-year-old pancreas to just shut down out of the blue? What causes this? Well, there's theories, of course. And, and so my question to my son was, okay, is her pancreas completely not producing insulin? Now, I don't know if you saw my live Facebook I did a couple of days ago. I talked about hormones that are causing people to increase their belly fat and their hip fat, and these common hormones you need to get control of. And insulin, of course, is always going to be number one because it's the driver of type 2 diabetes and actually type 1. But what happened with type 1, I asked him, I go, is her pancreas completely not producing insulin? Insulin is the driver, the key to open up the door in your cell to let your blood sugar, that's it, the glucose in your blood into the cell, so the cell can actually use it as energy and goes throughout the body and uses energy. And what he told me was, yes, the doctor said her pancreas is no longer producing insulin. Well, I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. Her pancreas just all of a sudden out of the blue shut down. What's the root cause? Is anybody asking? What caused it? Well, the theory is, and then I also, and it's not me. There's a doctor out there, Dr. Jason Fung, who's written 3 books, who is the pioneer of type 2 and type 1 diabetes, who has actually been reversing type 2 diabetes for 10 years, is now out educating other doctors about how the driver of type 2 diabetes most likely is what goes in your mouth. That's what the driver is. Now, the issue with type 1 diabetes and what all these professionals and doctors are saying, because they're not really educated, they're just going by what they learned from the pharmaceuticals, is that genetics. And now, is it possible that genetics could be the driver of a type 1 diabetic? Sure it can, but do they have actual proof? They don't even know. But my question is that what's the history of that person who contracted the type 1 diabetic as far as what their nutritional lifestyle was for years? What caused it? What's the root cause of it? Was it their grandparents? Was it their parents, how they ate? Was that, did that interfere with that young child getting type 1 diabetic? Because you look back at in the 50s, 60s, I don't see where we had an epidemic of young kids getting type 1 or type 2 diabetic back in those days. But boy, you sure see it now. And a good example is what's happening in Japan because they're Americanized. So let's look at reality. Now, yeah, I'm sure that there could be a small percentage of young kids getting type 1 diabetes because of their genetics. But no, I have to look at my experience as a health coach and working with people, with families all these last 35 years, at what they're drinking and what they're eating. And the cause of type 1 and type 2 diabetes, which obviously you also will get a fatty liver. So the problem is that as a Enagic distributor, let's stop focusing on the toys. Let's stop focusing on the big houses. Let's not try this. What's going to get us in trouble is that word steering. That's going to get us in trouble. And so what Enagic needs to do is they need to, okay, guys, stop putting pictures on Facebook of your fancy cars. Stop putting pictures of your houses. Stop all that. Stop having trainings and mentioning that you can make a ton of money and quit your job. Stop all that, because you are the ones that are going to make us lose our distributorship.
Right.
And that's where it has to start. And then let's focus on the truth, and let's focus what science is saying about this water. And it's not Kangen water that is showing the benefits to many disease models. It's actually science, and this is real science. Those of you that are, I hear people all the time, well, there's no science about it. There's no science. Well, if you Google it, there is. You're just not looking in the right place. You got to stay away from the actual blog posts. Yeah, there are some good blog posts where some good bloggers are referring to what they're saying, and they're backing it up with science, actual science. And those of you that actually want to know the truth about science, you cannot use somebody's blog post as reference to science. You've got to actually go to medical gas or medical gas. There's about a dozen different publishings that are actually abstract. If it doesn't say pilot research, or if it doesn't say abstract on it, forget it. Don't even use it. But that's not real science.
Yeah, well, I always tell people if they're going to do research to not do it on Google, but do it on either Google Scholar or PubMed.gov.
Yeah,
those two areas. Yeah. That's where all the scientists post their stuff. And, it kind of kills me. You go onto Google and punch in Kangen water, and you got to scroll way down the page before you even get to Kangen water. The first bunch of things that come up are all paid advertisements by our so-called competitors, as Jerry Kostica likes to call them, the leeches. And, it's like, it's crazy. You're searching for Kangen water and you don't even get Kangen water. You get all this bunch of nonsense that's just absolute lies and blatant misinformation, all from our so-called competitors trying to leech off of us. And it's amazing how many people just latch onto that stuff like stink on poo and take it as if it's real. Like there's one of them that's particularly interesting in that it looks like a Consumer Reports magazine article. And people look at that Consumer Reports as, like it's something that you should pay attention to when it comes to some product. And that, if you look at it closely, you go down to the bottom, it says life ionizers on the bottom of it.
Yeah, I know. You're right. And it's just that like we've been talking about, we need to focus as a company what Ashira is trying to do in the first place, and that is the health aspect of it. Why are so many competitors jumping on the bandwagon when it comes to hydrogen water? They call it hydrogen water. They don't really call it by its real name, but they call it by hydrogen water. Emily just found get this one, JJ. Emily just found, she's doing some research on some particular topic, and she came upon something that said Kangen water hydrogen, and she hit it, and it was it was actually the device had the name Kangen as the title, but when you clicked on it, it was a different type of device, not even close to what Kangen water is. And it was Emily, how much did that machine cost? You remember? It was cheap, very cheap. And but the problem, but the device apparently makes hydrogen water through electricity, which is good. But the problem is that it was promoting the name, it was using the name of Kangen water at the title to get people to click on it. And then then the device came up, and now, I mean, does the device actually produce molecular hydrogen H2? I don't know, but I do know by looking at it and reading it that if it does, you can't put it in a bottle, your traveling bottle for all day, because the hydrogen dissipates so fast that you would have to drink it from that device instantly in order to get the benefits. And now the other thing is that a lot of these, and you've seen this, is a lot of these so-called companies that produce hydrogen-rich water or hydrogen, they downgrade our devices because they say it doesn't produce enough hydrogen. Okay, so the question is, well, what's enough? What is enough? I mean, our practice is, and we tell people, those of us that are really involved in the health aspect of this water, we tell people the best way to get the most benefits out of the water is what? Drink it fresh from the machine.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a major disease like cancer, drink it fresh. We also tell them that you can, for me, I fully believe that the maximum as far as getting the benefits from this water, and this is, I mean, we don't know what enough means. Is enough enough? We don't know how much molecular hydrogen H2 you need, but sometimes more is not better. And so you should be drinking, and if you're traveling, it should be every 24 hours, you should get a fresh amount of hydrogen-rich water. So that to me should be advocated out there to the people on the different, on the reason why they should be talking more about this. So it looks like we lost JJ there for a few minutes, guys. There you go.
Yeah, I hear you. Sorry about that. I had to run to the little boys' room really quick.
Okay. But anyway, that just, I mean, we kind of got off the subject we were going to originally talk with, but it's something that's important we need to talk about, because you're right. It's coming up a whole lot on the sites about what's happening. I guess there was a company that was shut down just recently or something.
That was that was some company, I believe it was out of Texas, that sells some sort of nutritional supplement or something, and they were making too many income claims.
Yeah.
The FTC came in and shut them down. And
yeah. Well, I do notice though, JJ, that I don't see it. I don't see anybody posting any checks though on the Facebook or social media like they used to. I don't see that anymore.
Yeah, we've been able to put a pretty good curtailment on that. But there still have been the pictures with the fancy car. I know Cynthia Briganti, she's kind of famous for this. She loves spouting her money, all while speaking out the other side of her head that the money's not the thing. Money's not the important
Issue.
part, but everything she does shows residual of the money that she's making. And so I think it's kind of, quite frankly, I think it's kind of hypocritical, to be honest with you. And
Well, it's kind of cool because the leaders out there that are actually doing something good with their money don't even talk about it, except for, and I think they should, is that the ones that are, I mean, you got leaders out there that are building churches, and are building orphanages in other countries that need it. That's what their main focus on is that. You got guys out there that are, I'm not going to name any names, but you have leaders out there that are helping the poor. You got leaders out there that are helping the homeless. I mean, these are people that should be recognized for what they're doing. You don't have to mention where they got their money, but they should be mentioned. Okay, this is what a NAGIC has been able to let me do. That's all good. That's all exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah,
that's what the money should be used for.
You know something? We were just on the discussion of these other so-called competitors that I like to call them the leeches, because that's what they do. They leech off of us. That's why they start their thing with Kangen water, because we are the standard of the industry. You don't ever see them comparing themselves to each other. But one of my favorite things, this is a little tip that I maybe you've done this before, maybe not. And this might be something that'll help other distributors out there when they come across these people that have these other kinds of machines. I always encourage those people. I show them this it's about a 3-minute video that I have in my kitchen, where I actually turn off the light and I fire up my SD501, and I take a lighter, a cigarette lighter, and I put it up to that water as it's coming out of that machine, and it's like I actually melted the tip of my SD501, Coach. I actually melted it. I didn't realize that I was that close? I had the water so close, or the lighter so close, that the flame was actually going up through the water, and it actually melted the tip. My sweetie pointed it out to me. She's like, "Sweetie, look what you did! You melted car!" I'm like, I said, well, that's his war wounds, But I've had a couple of people that have other competitor machines, and I urged them to try doing that. I said, hey, do me a favor. I'm curious. Take a cigarette lighter and put it up against your water that's coming out of your machine. See if it does this. And I send them that little 3-minute video that shows Kangen water lighting on fire. And what that is, as you know, that's the hydrogen in the water. Mm-hmm. That's the hydrogen gas burning. And I think it's pretty powerful stuff. The last person that I had do it, she has a Tyant under the counter machine that her dad gave her. And I asked her to do it. She's an old friend of mine, and she did it. And she said, I don't see any snapping or crackling or popping or burning or anything. And I said, well, the reason why is because your machine isn't disassociating the water molecule like it should, and it's not actually creating H2. It's not creating what they say it creates, and that's why they have to have these secondary filters that add chemicals back in, and that's why they sell H2 drops and things like that along with their machines. So it's an interesting aspect, but I think for us being part of the Kong family, we know that we actually have the real deal. And
well, you know what? I mean, a great example is that, go back to history of this water. Look how long Dr. Sheeny has been using this hydrogen-rich water for his patients. I mean, he's probably one of the top cancer patients cancer doctors in this world. I mean, look what he's accomplished, and he's written books about it and states in his book the benefits. I mean, how can you dispute that? How can you deny that? I mean, I've used that with clients of mine who go in there to get a colonoscopy who have either cancer or some kind of diverticular or something like that. And I tell them, I said, well, go into your doctor and have them ask them, do you know who Dr. Moshe Shinya is? And and the guy who's given the colonoscopy, never heard of him. Who's that? Are you kidding me? He was one of the founders of what you're doing, buddy. So where's your I mean, it's just sad because you get these, you get these people that aren't educated in molecular hydrogen, and they're telling you that it's a scam. It's so sad because, and then I've over the years I've gotten a little hard, sometimes maybe too hard, but I'm going to tell them right up front. You're not educated in molecular hydrogen. How in the world can you tell me it's a scam? I mean, it'd be like me. What kind of a job do you have? Well, I'm an engineer for so-and-so. Okay. I'm going to tell you how to do your job. How would you feel? The same thing. Don't criticize something unless you're an expert at it or unless you've done your research. Now, I'm not talking about a month worth of research. I'm not talking about 2 months. You better have been researching it for over a year or even longer. Emily and I, we've been doing research on these 3 protocols for probably almost 6 or 7 years now. I mean, I'm in the middle of one now on ourselves right now, and it's going on to 3 years now, where I'm taking different protocols of the 3 protocols that we're doing on ourselves because we're older. And this month I'm doing something new, and I am completely blown away by what's happening to me because of the research I'm doing on myself and what it's doing for my longevity and what it's doing for my strength and how my body fat is actually getting less and less and less. And I am blown away by it. So it's just, I mean, the research, you can't deny it because I'm documenting everything. I'm using myself. That's the best research out there. It's like we were talking about, like I remember you commented on one of my posts about body fat. What's the norm? What is the standard? What the United States set a standard. This is a great example. For years, the United States the medical professionals, whoever sets these things, FDA, I don't know who sets them, but anyway, they set the blood pressure being at a certain level, right? For years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all of a sudden, a couple of years ago, they came back and said, that's too high. We need to lower the blood pressure this should be the normal. So now they lowered the blood pressure down to what it should be. And that's probably where it should have been for decades, but they didn't. So the same thing with in obesity right now in young and old is another disease that is rampant or is it epidemic in young and old. And so if you look at what the 2019 norm is for a man and a woman, and obesity is so high right now, how does that make sense? Because it's too high. In my opinion, it's too high. And I've heard other health professionals who are actually experts in body fat and into lean muscle, who are experts at it because they've been doing it for decades, for years, and they're saying the same thing, that the norm for the man and a woman as far as body fat is too high, is set too high. And so you go to a gym and you hire a trainer, and the trainer maybe has a year, 2, 3, 4 years under his belt as being a trainer. They're not, I mean, they went and they got certified by the Cracker Box outfit on the internet. That's what I call them, Cracker Box certifications. So you go to a gym and they've got these scales that you can stand on that dictate your lean body mass and body fat. That's BS. Now you got to. There's there's certain calipers to check your body fat that are good, but you've got to be experienced on how to use them. You can't just be some Joe Blow trainer, young trainer who just got their certification from Cracker Box and expect to get the right reading. In my personal opinion, the best reading out there, obviously, is going to be the water tank test. That's the best. But if you can't do that, there's two of them you can do. It's pretty simple. How do your clothes feel? I mean, is the protocol, is the diet you're on really working? How do your clothes feel? And the other thing, look at your abs, because that's what's the number one complaint about people over 30 or 40. Belly fat.
Yeah.
Okay. So is your eating plan or is your diet working? Most of them aren't, because they're Western diets, but they don't understand the physiology of the body and how to lose weight. But the problem is that look at your abs. Are your abs showing? Are your pants getting looser and looser? There's the test. Stay off the scale. Scale is crap. That means nothing. That's measuring your water. That's measuring your waste products. That's fluids. That's I mean, get off the scale. Get a tight pair of pants. Go on a good protocol. Measure your progress, your results with your clothes, and look at your stomach. Look at your abs. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that the last place that you're most likely are going to lose the weight is going to be in your abs and your hips.
Yeah.
And the other thing is you got to understand too that if you have imbalanced hormones, you can do all the exercising you want. You can do all the fancy dieting you want. You can buy all the fancy thermogenic weight loss pills you want. Nothing's going to happen until you get your hormones in balance. And what is going to drive you to get your hormone balance? Number one, you got to clean the slate. You got to change to a water that has the ability to detoxify you every single day, to get rid of the toxins out of those cells, because that's going to be a driver of imbalanced hormones, is the environmental toxins, the pesticides, herbicides, and all those 200 chemicals that are on food, and the water you're drinking, and the restaurants you're going to, the food there. I mean, you got to clean that slate out. That's what you're going to, and then go to the next two protocols. You got to change the type of food you're eating, and you got to change the time you're eating them. Go what our ancestors did. That's how you're going to do it. That is how, and your body fat. That's just what's sad, because the norm for today is, if a woman, I'll take a woman, because there seems to be a whole lot of women out there that are trying to get rid of the belly fat and hip fat, because most women, women's hormones are brutal compared to men. Brutal. I feel sorry for them. You know, I just wish more men. I've learned so much with my wife on hormones that men need to understand that if a woman's going through a depression, or if she's going through menopause, don't blame her for her attitude. It's not her, it's her hormones. They have to have more understanding of it. But what happens is these women go into these gyms and they go on these funky pieces of equipment that don't tell the truth. And they're saying, oh, your body fat is at 28. Oh, let's look at okay, you're average for your age. No, it's not. Personally, I feel that for a man and a woman, it should be around, 16 to 19%. Should be in that range there. Athletes, I think they're saying now are 15%. And I actually think that I mean, an athlete, I don't think is that much. I think they're down in more like the 8, 10s, and 11s.
Yeah.
For health, So, that's just my personal opinion about the norms and where they should be. But I think one day here soon, they're going to do the same thing as they did with blood pressure. They'll lower the norms down to more of a healthy body fat. Now, women obviously need a little bit more fat than men because of their reproductive systems, but that's still, Emily, I think her body fat's probably around 11 or 12. and she's fine. She feels great.
You know, it's interesting, this subject, Coach, because it brings to mind a book I read about John Stockton. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not. He actually set what they call the most unbreakable record in sports, which is the NBA assist record. And they say that out of all the records that have been set in all the different sports, that this one is the most unbreakable, that, you know, at this point, they don't foresee that record ever being broke. But the reason I say this is interesting is he played for 19 years for the Utardia Jazz, and he and a guy named Karl Malone, who, you know, both of them are in the Hall of Fame and all that. But I read Stockton's book. He wrote a book called Assisted. And in that book, he talks about how he and Karl Malone would come into training camp every year. They played together for 19 years. And they would come into training camp every year, and they had a running bet with each other, a challenge with each other, to see who would come in with the lowest amount of body fat. And they would work their tails off all winter long or all summer long, trying to make sure that when they came into camp that they had the lowest amount of body fat. Mm-hmm. And the amount of body fat was just ridiculously low. It was, you know, like in the 7% range, right, something right, like that, really low. Right. But these two guys were Iron Men. They played for years and years and years. And I just, you know, what is the optimum level? You know, that was one thing I thought was interesting about that question that you posed, and why I put up my comment of, you know, I think it's supposed to be somewhere around 10 or something like that. What is it? You know, maybe this is a great thing to talk about on the show Friday. But yeah, you know, I mean, what is it? What is the best place for people to be? You just mentioned right there that probably around 15% for athletes and 16 to 19% for regular, you know, plain old Joes like me. And, you know, that seems about right to me. What do you, you know?
I'm going, okay, well, when you're going on stage, when you're a bodybuilder and you're going on stage and you're going, and you're doing that 12-week diet down, your objective is to get your body fat down to about 4 or 5. So the day you go to, on Saturday, when you have pre-judging, you're looking to get your body fat down to 4 or 5. Some of them have them down to 3. And then what happens is that, of course, when the competition is over, and this is where people get metabolic damage because of their lifestyle as far as doing a competitive bodybuilding, is they go and they just go to eat every dessert, every food they can after it's over. Personally, I feel for a good optimum is if you're an athlete, it's going to be around 8 to 12. That's probably what it is. That's what it should be. Now, for me, my goal is going to be, I want to get down to about 7 or 6. That's where I got now. People, you know, I've told people, well, they'll say, well, what's your body fat? And I said, I think it's about 11 or 12. And they're saying, well, it doesn't look like looks like it might be less than that. Well, I don't think, I'm very good at it. I've been tested. I've been doing this for so many years that I can pretty much take a set of good, expensive calipers, and there's a ratio you go by. There's readings. There's 3 readings on the body you take. And when Emily and I owned the Powerhouse Gym here in Temecula, we had the water dunk tank come in every month, so people can take an actual reading of their body fat and muscle mass. Well, I had a challenge by someone said, because they've heard me say, well, I'm very close to reality when it comes to body fat just with the calipers, but I've been doing it for years. And so I had a challenge that they said, okay, let's see how good you really are. And you do my body fat first with the calipers, and then I'm going to go in the dunk tank and see what they say. Well, I was within 1% or less every time. So that's how close I was with that. But it seems like that for us, like I said, I mean, Emily's a woman, and back in the, some people may say, well, that's 11% is too low for a woman to be as. No, it's not. I mean, she's very healthy. I mean, she's increasing. I mean, I don't know if you saw that video of her doing that lat pull down or whatever, or she was doing rear delts and saw the muscle tone on her back. She's 64 years old. That you cannot. I mean, she is 64 years old developing lean muscle.
Yeah.
Okay, so her body fat obviously is very low. Now, I do admit that a woman's got to be careful. They do have to be careful to get down to too low, because it will affect their hormones more so than men. But see what these other women are doing when they're doing these 12-week diet downs to get down to that body fat, they're not doing it right, because they're not actually regenerating new muscle satellite stem cells because of the way they're eating. Their bodies aren't adapted to using the fat, or they're not adapted to put them in a state of autophagy, which is what you need to get into in order to generate those new muscle satellite stem cells to increase the size of the muscle fibers. They're not doing that. See, what they're doing is they're doing these typical Western diet on this diet downs. They're starving themselves, and they're doing an hour or so of cardio twice a day. And so what are they doing? They're not only burning body, they're burning muscle also. And so and they're miserable. They're miserable. I mean, every person that has competed in bodybuilding and have gone on stage will tell you that. You can Google women physiques metabolic damage, and every one of them will talk about the diet down, the 12, how unhealthy it is, and the process you have to go through it to get ready to go on stage, and why women developed metabolic damage and hormonal damage when they're doing multiple contests in the same year. All you gotta do is research it, and they're telling you it's not worth it, because long-term issues with imbalanced hormones for a woman is, I mean, we're experienced. Emily went through it for 10 years, metabolic damage for 10 years. We finally found a naturopath who is a hormonal doctor who actually got her back on track again. She was the only one. And we tried everything to get her hormones back in line. Now they're in line. They've been in line now for probably 8 years. And that's why she feels the way she feels. And that's why she's able to look the way she looks and maintain her leanness, because her hormones are now balanced.
Yeah. Well, Coach, I'd love to get into this subject a little deeper next week, because I think it's interesting. People would probably find this to be really, really interesting. I know I do. And because there's a lot of conflicting information out there. Like, for example, I was just down at that Red Pill Expo, and one of the guys that was there was this doctor who's a naturopathic doctor. And his recommendation was a low-fat diet, and that's exactly contradictory to what you're doing. And as soon as I heard him start talking about that, the first person I thought of was you, and our discussions here on the show. And I thought, when you just mentioned what your body fat level is right now, I thought, my first thought was, that is so interesting, considering that you eat a very high fat diet. And, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people out there that are really curious about that. How the heck can that be? How can that be that you have such low body fat, but here you are eating this diet that is really high in fat, and a much larger percentage of fat in your diet than what people like the doctor who was at the Red Pill Expo are contradicting it with. And so I'd love to next week perhaps get into that again. I know we've talked about it already, but I think it's something that we kind of need to keep driving. We need to keep driving this car home so that people will get it, and people will, because after all, Coach, right, our goal is to change the world, and we do that by changing people one person at a time, and getting people onto H2 rich water. And because you and I both know it is the foundation. Like Sam Tran said, the reason I recommend people drink this water is simple. It's the foundation of life. And so that's why I recommend it, period. And so, I think that as we continue on our Friday meetings, that we continue to hammer this point home, that, we've been so scared of fat over all these years. It's just been over. Like for me, I won't eat anything. I don't care what it is. If it says low fat or diet on it, I ain't putting it in my machine. It ain't happening. Mm-hmm. And that's just the way I am. And like I used to love those little creamy pops. Mm-hmm. They're like a creamy little cross between a yogurt and an ice cream. And I used to love those things, but now they only make them in low fat. And so I haven't had one in years. And I'm not going to eat anything that says low fat on it. I've been telling my sweeties, stop it with the low fat stuff. We need stuff that has fat in it. And it's a good thing. But I know you're the resident expert here in the Kong family, and I would love to continue to expand upon that as much as possible, however you feel necessary, to drive the point home to people so that we can help people change their lives. And so I love having you in here every week and being able to get your expertise and get your information out there so other people can learn from it. And, hopefully get some people that'll want to get in touch with you and utilize your services and, help you build your business as well in that department, because, this is all super important what we're doing here. And I really do appreciate you and Emily and everything you guys do to further this mission.
Well, that question you said about that doctor talking about the low fat, that's something that's been around for decades. Well, what we could leave with the people that listen to this video, and then we'll talk about a little more next Friday, but this is what we could leave for them to think about. Okay, first of all, the low-fat diet was introduced, I think, in the early 70s, late 60s by cardiologists. Because why? Because they were saying that the high-fat diet causes high cholesterol, which causes heart attacks. That's what started this whole low-fat thing decades ago. So the problem was, ever since they reverted, now this is what I want the audience to really think about. When they introduced the low-fat diet decades ago, the food industry start producing all these processed low-fat foods, like you were saying, JJ, then why is obesity an epidemic today with adults and kids? And every year it kept going up. It never went down. And now it's super bad. And it's very simple. Go to a store, look at what people are buying, all these low-fat foods, and look at their composition of their bodies, and look at their kids. So take that and think about that. And then the next thing you could think about is this. These doctors that are prescribing a low-fat diet, they are not telling you the whole story. They are not telling you the whole story, because what they're doing here is and I'm going to be very honest, is that I might be going out on the limb, but that's okay. They are not educated in the physiology of the body and how it works when it comes to lean body mass and body fat, and how the hormones play a huge part in fluctuating the weight. They're not educated in this at all. If they were, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. So what that doctor did was give you guys bad advice. And this is not me. I mean, science has been talking about this for decades. Why don't they see it? I mean, think about this. Our ancestors, when it comes to fat, I mean, like I said, and we won't go any further on this, but I just leave it. They're not, these doctors are not telling you the whole story. They're leaving out the most important parts of the story, why they're saying low fat. And they're also talking about cholesterol, and they're misleading the public on that also.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it, Coach. That's why I love what I do. I love this company because we're all about the truth. We just want to get the truth out there and let the chips fall where they may. And, you know, that's what we have to do. That's what we need to be. Because what's the old saying? The truth will set you free.
That's right.
I'm only interested in the truth, and I've been willing over all my years since I finally woke up, since I ate that proverbial red pill clear back in 1993 when I read the book World Without Cancer. That was my first red pill eating moment, and it changed everything about the way I think. And now, ever since reading that, I'm only interested in the truth. And I don't really care where it's coming from. I just care that it's the truth. And so I believe that that's the way you feel about things too. I think that's why we make a great team, and why we can do this and be able to help people. And I want to encourage people that are out there that are going to be listening to this. If you know anybody that's fighting with their weight, they're fighting with that stubborn belly fat, that hip fat, that butt fat, whatever, you know, they want to get rid of that. They're struggling with their whatever their disease might be. You know, try to encourage them to listen into this show on Fridays, or get them the recordings of this, because Coach knows what he's talking about, and he's given us really good, solid information that we can utilize to shift our lives around and to be able to get rid of all that pesky fat. And I think your point is awesome about, you know, yeah, they started this low-fat diet stuff back in the 60s and 70s, and man, look at that. Look how it's turned out. Look at all the big, you know,
How's that working?
I think of that picture that saw you. It was probably you who put that up, where it showed people on the beach in California back in the 70s, and you didn't see a single overweight body on the beach. And now you go and take that same picture. It would be really interesting to see that same picture now on a crowded beach in California in that same spot. I'm betting you that you would see a lot of bigger bodies on that beach.
Yeah. Well, you know, JJ, let's leave it with this. That I'm doing a little bit of more research on myself. I couldn't remember how old I was, so I had to ask my wife, am I going to be 68 or 67? And she says, Bill, you're going to be 68. I go, oh, crap. So, but anyway, what I'm doing is on every Sunday, Emily and I only have one meal, and it's 70%. Now, get this, what I'm saying here. This is part of what we're going to be talking about Friday. That the doctors are saying low fat aren't telling you the whole story. So this is something we're going to be talking about. We are 70% good dietary fat, and we're 5% very low carbohydrates. Which carbohydrates am I eliminating from my diet? That's another factor that they're not telling you the whole story. Now, on Sundays, that's our God's day. So we have one meal after church, and it's a good amount of good dietary fat, and it's a pretty good meal. I'm probably going to get 1,500 to 1,800 calories just out of that one meal because I'm eating higher fat. Well, and we have that meal at about 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. We do not eat anything until the following day at around 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays are my interval strength training days. And so I'm going to be exercising at a fasted state before I even have a meal. Well, on Tuesday, I'm doing a 42-hour fast, which means I'm not eating any solid food for 42 hours straight. So Wednesday, when I go in to do my interval strength training, I'm fasting at around 41 hours. So I'm exercising in a 41-hour fasted state. Well, this last Wednesday, my energy level was sky high. My strength, I had to go up, and I'm going to have to go up on most all my body parts and add weight to it, because my strength was out of the, I was just sitting there going, what the heck is going on here? I felt great. And then my recovery was just as good as if I was eating my normal, high fat diet during my normal days when I'm not doing a prolonged fast. And my recovery was just as good. And so then on Thursday, yesterday, I'm doing another 42-hour fast. So when I go to the gym today, I'm going to be around 41, 42 hours fasting and exercising, and I have no cravings. Okay, well, wait a minute, Bill. What do you mean you have no craving for food? Absolutely not. Emily's not on the same routine as I am, pretty close, but not the same. She made an egg omelet for her dinner last night, which was high fat. While she was cooking that, of course, the smell, right? And when in my Facebook post that I did a couple of days ago on the most common hormones that can cause you to gain weight or lose weight, there's a hormone called ghrelin, which is known as a time clock in your body. Normally what happens when normal people that are doing a regular Western diet and maybe haven't eaten yet, what happens if they were to smell that food being made, that hormone called ghrelin would go up. And that hormone is a hormone that tells the brain, I'm hungry. Okay, but here I fasted for 42 hours. She made that meal and I had no cravings at all. Zero at all.
Wow.
Okay, so this is
fascinating.
Yeah, and I'm getting stronger at the same time. So, well, wait a minute. That doctor that JJ was talking to said you must go on a low-fat diet, but yet here I'll be 68 years old, an old person, and I'm gaining lean muscle. So, what is it that's causing this to work for me? And we'll talk about that next Friday.
That sounds awesome. And I beg to differ, Coach. You're not 68 years old. You're 68 years young, brother. You are getting younger and younger and younger, and I love it. And I sure appreciate you coming in here on Fridays with us. We always learn so much great information. And, I look forward to next Friday. I hope you and Emily have a great day and an awesome weekend. And a great week next week. And look forward to continuing this discussion next Friday. And so to everybody out there, thank you for being here. And we hope you enjoy this when you get to see it on the recording, once we get it up onto the YouTube channel. And, we are the Kong family. We're here to change the world. We're doing it. One glass of hydrogen-rich, oxygen-saturated, incredibly hydrating Kong and water at a time. One lightning bolt in a box, one awesome, informative show, and, one amazing person, an awesome family at a time.
Yeah, I see we have Roger on the video today. Hey, Roger, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Doing great. Thank you for being on the show today, buddy.
Oh, it's always my pleasure. It's very great information.
Yeah, Rodgar's into the whole idea of getting good information, and so he tunes in all the time to the Kong Family Show. We love you, buddy. We sure appreciate you being here. And
I cannot make it every day, but the days when I can, I'm on here.
Yeah, we love you, buddy. And tell that sweetie of yours, give her a big hug for us. And yeah. So, Coach, thank you once again, buddy. God bless you. And thanks again for everything you do. You're absolutely an inspiration. And
Okay, you all have a blessed day and a blessed rest of the week, and we'll see you guys the next time around.
Sounds good, buddy.
Same to you. Have a great day.
Don't forget your hugs and your hoodie. All right, buddy. See ya.
See ya.
See you, Rodgar. Love you, buddy.